People want to work with an expert who's going to solve their problem and deliver a solution. And that doesn't have to be you. And so it's learning how to, first and foremost, set your ego aside.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a fun one. Our returning guest is the CEO of Sales Maven, a podcaster, author, and sales expert with 25 plus years of experience selling to prestigious organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and NASA. Nikki Rausch, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be back with you, Michael. Thank you.
It's great to have you. And Nikki, I'd love to learn what have you been up to since the last time you were on the podcast?
Oh my goodness. Well, since the last time I was on the podcast, I moved. So I moved from Washington back home to my hometown, which is Boise, Idaho. So that was probably the biggest transition. And then, just chugging away, growing the business and having the time of my life working with my clients.
Beautiful. It's great to hear. Well, it's always a big one when you're moving, and any particular reason why you moved?
Really, it was for a family thing. And, it never works out quite the way, at least for me, quite the way I thought it would. But it's been interesting, that saying, you can never go home again. I think that's true.
That's right. That's right. As much as we'd love to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Well, today we're going to be talking about a few different things, but first I'd like to start off with is team, having team in your business. I mean, you've been doing this a while. You're selling to major organizations, as I mentioned in the introduction. What's the importance of a team in your business?
Well, I think a team is crucial so that we all are really, really good at maybe one or two things, but we can all do like 20 to 100 things. And sometimes I think as entrepreneurs, we get caught up in the, I have to do it all, but you doing it all really spreads you so thin that the thing that I think is your genius often gets diluted because you're spending time doing things that really you could hire somebody who would be more efficient. They'd free up space for you to go and, focus on the things that you're really good at, focus on bringing in, new clients into the business or revenue into the business, whatever it is that your role is. So I think a team is absolutely crucial to your success. I really don't believe that we're supposed to be in this alone, even if you have the title as entrepreneur. I think there's usually going to be a strong team behind you if you really want to scale your business.
I agree totally. It's always a journey too, I think, when people are, especially in this industry of bookkeepers who started out likely as solo, decided on growing their business, adding team members. When you were you always good at adding team or leveraging team in your business, or how did that evolve for you?
Well, I think I got some really great advice when I started my business. One of the best pieces of advice that I got is hire somebody who knows how to do the things that you don't know how to do, that you have to learn in order to be successful in business. So the first person I hired was a business coach and he taught me so much about putting together my first offer. He taught me so much about just really establishing myself as a business. And then from there, I was always just looking for what are the things that I was doing that was taking up a lot of time that I didn't really enjoy and specifically didn't bring revenue into the business. That's the sales coach in me. So that's when I started hiring out and looking for who are the right support team members so that I can do the things that I'm really good at and not spend a bunch of time, energy, frustration doing the things that drive me nuts, which is all the technical stuff.
So true. Now, one of your most popular podcast episodes is about selling clients and working with your team. Tell us a little bit about that, and it'd be great for us to put a link or something into the show so our listener can get to that.
Well, that actually came from that whole podcast is all about being able to transition some of your client work onto team members, like client-facing work. I find that a lot of times business owners, they get caught up in this like, well, everybody knows that I'm the expert at X, Y, and Z, so they only want to work with me and they don't want to work with my team members. I've brought somebody on to be like a junior associate or whatever you want to call that person. And so I've been having a lot of conversations with business owners that want to sell their team members services. And so it can't just be them. And there are some big things that business owners often do that get in the way of somebody wanting to work with a team member because they think, well, people only want to work with me. That's actually not true. People want to work with an expert who's going to solve their problem and deliver a solution. And that doesn't have to be you. And so it's learning how to, first and foremost, set your ego aside. Because I get it, as a business owner, you are incredible at what you do. You're the expert, whether it's bookkeeping or whatever it is that you've done, you're the expert. And it's hard sometimes to not feel like, well, if somebody's not working with me, they're not getting the best. But that isn't going to help you scale your business. And so you have to learn that when you're talking about your business, you have to talk about the team. Everything can't be focused on you. Like, I do this and I do that. Well, I don't have time to work with you. So you could get the like second string people and you could work with my other team. They're not as good as me. Like, who's going to want to hire that person?
You know how many times I've heard that they used in this industry? You won't work with me. You'll work with our junior.
Terrible, right? Like,
Yeah.
Why would you want to work with junior?
Innocent. I feel bad for, I've heard it so many times, and I feel bad for the people that I've worked with and talked to in the course of this podcast and way beyond. But it's always one of those things. Whenever I hear that, I'm like, please never say that again.
Yes. I had a whole conversation with this really successful business, and that was kind of they're like, we need to take a step back as the owners of the business, and we have this incredible team, but nobody wants to work with them. And I'm like, well, first of all, stop calling them juniors. Like, stop calling them associates, call them team members. And when people are coming to hire you, you don't talk about you talk about the team. You talk about what the team delivers. You talk about the solution you deliver. And you have to pour love and really shine a bright light on the team member that you're recommending to solve this person or work with this person, solve their problem or work with them in some way. So instead of saying like, well, here's my junior associate and, I'll make sure I check all their work. Instead be like, who we're going to pair you up with? We're going to pair you up with Paula. She's absolutely amazing. She is the best of the best when it comes to this. And I know she's going to take great care of you. And then when they get on a call with Paula, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to work with you.
We'll get back to the interview right after this word from our sponsor. If only there was a way for bookkeepers to help their clients simplify outdated paper-based financial operations. Oh wait, there is. It's called Bill. Bill helps automate finances for hundreds of thousands of small to mid-sized businesses so they can easily and quickly pay bills, collect payments, and manage employee expenses. When bookkeepers help clients automate their finances with Bill, everyone gets greater visibility and control, and more time to spend on the important stuff. Learn more about Bill at bill.com/successful bookkeeper. Thank you for hearing from our sponsor. Now let's get back to the interview. So true. Another piece that goes along with that one is they have in the past, when they'll say it's junior, they'll actually reduce the rate as well. It's like, you'll work with my junior and you'll pay a lower rate, which is just, it's kind of crazy to think that. I mean, it's logical.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not me. It's someone that's only been here a while. They don't have as much experience. So but the positioning of it, it's very truthful. It's very truthful, but at the same time, it's not truthful.
Right.
because those team members that they hired and trained and all that good stuff are likely as qualified and can do the work and do, actually not even about the work, but deliver on the promise of whatever the business owner is promising to the client. So it's almost like this, saying something and getting over saying something that is like the absolute truth. Yes, they've been here the least amount of time, but you don't necessarily need to let someone know. It's like if someone, a doctor or something came to work in a new hospital, they wouldn't say, well, this person's just brand new off the, out of school, and they're so junior, but they're going to be real great with you. It's like the truth is they've done all this work. They've qualified to do this. They're qualified to be here. And that's what needs to be mentioned is we've, taken them through this process and they follow our great system here that we're doing, versus underselling themselves. Why do you think that is? Why do so many undersell themselves?
Well, I think it's always hard to sell yourself, right? So it feels uncomfortable. It feels like, I mean, most of us grew up being like, don't always try to be the center of attention. Don't always try to stand out in the crowd. Like, why do you have to make everything about you? And so I think, and probably, I don't know, you tell me because you're the expert when it comes to bookkeepers, but I find that a lot of the bookkeepers that I work with aren't really wanting to be center stage. They're not wanting necessarily all the spotlights to shine on them. And it feels like, oh, if it's shining on me, somehow that's wrong. But the thing that I always try to explain to people is that you're selling the service, you're selling the business. And even if the business is you, even if it is your expertise, you have to treat it like it's its own entity. And that means you need to pour love on it. You need to shine the light on it. You need to be okay with it being in the spotlight. And what the client is buying, whether it's you or a team member, they're buying the deliverables, the value of what it is that they're getting. It's not so much about how many years you've been at the company. It's not necessarily about if you're junior or senior. It's what can you deliver? Can you deliver on what their need is, what the problem is, what the want is that they're trying to have solved? That's what you're selling, the solution, the value of the solution.
So true. So true. And I agree. I think you've really nailed it. A bookkeeper is not necessarily going into the business to be front and center. Very caring people that I found. They deeply care. And at the same time, they're in this world of making sure that everything is exactly accurate. And so that kind of mind will often reveal what's exactly accurate, even though that it's because when you get into sales, when you get into marketing, when you get into a lot of other pieces of business, there's so much gray. There's so much gray. Yes, this person's new, but they have 25 years of experience. So what do you say? Do you say they have 25 years of experience, or do you say that they're new?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's kind of like, well, they're both, but do you need to say that? So it's a little bit of, I think, gray, which can trip them up a little bit when having these kinds of conversations. But if you focus on and just talk about the outcomes, who cares, right? Whether they've 25 years, 1 year, they're brand new, they've been here forever. What is the outcome?
Yeah.
That is going to, like, even I'm sure yourself, when you hired an accountant or a bookkeeper, I mean, I would imagine that one of the things that you thought about is this person's going to just get it all done for me so that I don't have to worry about it.
Yes.
That's an outcome. That's an outcome.
That's really all I care about.
Right. Peace of mind, financial certainty, knowing that they've got that. You don't have to worry about it. I mean, if the conversation just focused just on that, our listener would be ahead of most of the pack.
Yeah, people are always more interested in themselves than they are in you. And I say that with a lot of love because sometimes that's hard to hear. It's like, but I'm interesting. Yes. And they're more interested in themselves. So how is it going to impact them? What are they going to get out of the relationship? That's what they really want to know. And that's what you're selling. Is like
so
you said,
true.
The outcome. I love that. I mean, that's I use that word a lot too. It's like, what's the outcome? Sell the outcome. That is absolutely what people are most interested in. Now, if they want to ask questions and dig in and be like, so how long have you been there? What's your background? All of that stuff. Okay, well, then you can show up and you can answer those questions. one thing in sales is that, and kind of back to your point here, is that sometimes we feel like we have to tell everything, but that actually is doing a disservice, because you're giving information overload when you feel like you have to share every detail. And people don't want to get in the weeds. And for you, it might not feel like the weeds, but for them it is, because they don't care. I have an amazing bookkeeper. She's been with me since I've had my business for 9 years. I think she's been with me for almost 8. I cannot tell you how long she's been in business. I have no idea. I just know that she delivers. Every single time I reach out to her, she has an answer. She does my books every single month without a doubt. She, files all the paperwork. Like, she's amazing. I love this woman. I would be lost without her. And I couldn't tell you a thing about her business other than she delivers for me.
So wonderful. I love hearing that when you found someone who's great.
Yeah.
And it's one of these things that I'll always love bringing these up. The conversation of what to say and selling your team and building up your team, making your team the hero. All of these things are really subtle, but make such a big impact on the bottom line, on the results of the business. And so these little things, even in this call right here, we've given like a 1.5% little twist, little change that could literally be a 10x, 20x impact on the business. If in a sales call, you focused on talking about what's the outcome that's important to the person on the other side, stayed out of the weeds, or found out, does the business owner, like the weeds? Some do. I mean, some do actually like getting into the weeds of it all. But as a bookkeeper, that's your job. You are the weeds, right? It's the weeds. Like, there's so many weeds over there that got to be, and that's like, should be celebrated, because not many people can or want to get into the deep, deep weeds that are required to be gotten into by a bookkeeping firm. So if you start talking about weeds, I've seen it so many times. You're talking about the weeds with the business owner, glassy-eyed, and they're just praying that the conversation ends quickly. So, I think it's like, what do they need to hear about? What do they need to know? These are great questions to ask versus telling them about the weeds. Ask them, what do they need to know? What outcomes are they looking for? What's going to make them really happy at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, around their finances? Those are some great questions that keep you out of the weeds.
Yeah. And if you're somebody who feels compelled, like, oh, I'm so, like, because I sometimes get pushback, like, Nikki, I just feel like people need to know this. What you just said is a perfect response. Ask them a question. And you could even frame it to say, now, are you the kind of person that wants a lot of detail, or do you just prefer high level, just bare bones, basic information so that you can make decisions? What's your preference? Let the client then answer and tell you what their preference is. And if they're the person of like, just give me the basics, just give me what I need to make decisions about, and all that other stuff, if there's a really specific reason I need to know it, then we can chat about it. But otherwise, I'm not interested in all that detail. And then respect that. I always say, take your cues from your client. Respect what they prefer. And if you find somebody who's like, I love the detail, you can't overwhelm me with detail because I love it so much, great. You found somebody that will be so happy that you just get into the weeds with them. But the rest of your clients, if you really want to expand your reach as to who you can serve, then you have to be willing to take your cues from your clients and deliver information in the way they most want to receive it.
So true. And it's a bit of an art form, I think, that the whole concept of going in, shutting down what we need, and really being at service of because you're being of service to that other person, that this prospective client or client, in service of not going into the weeds. Because if I was the bookkeeper and I'm talking about the weeds, that's satisfying to me. I love talking about the weeds. I love showing how important it is and how much, how specific it needs to be and all those things. That's probably where I live. That's all about me. Shutting that down, we need to, like you said it, right? They don't care about me. They care about themselves, and I care about me. I don't care about them. It's like we're human beings. So we both got that double-edged sword. So I think it's a gift for someone to go in and truly listen to someone, ask questions, and really keep what we need out of the equation because it's what they need. That's the outcome that they're looking for. It's all about them. And that's a gift. And if we think about it as a gift, we're more likely to do it because it's like, hey, I really listened to that person. I understood them. Even if we don't win the business, we've given the gift.
That's right. And you're more likely, honestly, to win the business because I don't know if I talked about this when I was on the podcast last time, but we like people who are like us. And so we find people who are like us really easy to be in conversation with. When you're willing to be flexible to the other person, what their style is, not only will you be likable, but you can tell me if you've noticed this in your own life, but when you meet somebody who's like you, not only is it easy to chat with them, but you think people who are like you are smart.
Mm.
Like, let's be honest.
Smart.
You meet somebody
Amazing
who's like
people.
you and you're like,
they're like me, they're amazing.
yeah, that person is amazing and they're smart.
Mm.
So I'm not asking you to do anything that's out of integrity, but when you're willing to deliver information in the way somebody wants to receive it, not only will they like you more, they'll think you're smart. Because you are smart. And I'm not debating that. You are smart. Be willing to be flexible. My all-time favorite quote is, "Blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be bent out of shape." I'm just asking you to add a little flexibility to your style. If your style is one that loves all the detail and loves the weeds, be willing to be a little flexible for the person who doesn't need all the detail and doesn't want to be in the weeds. And you will expand your client base.
So true. So true. I love this conversation. It just has me thinking like, I just want our listener to do more work in this area. I just know everyone can benefit from it. Doing work in this area, getting some sales training and really figuring it out. It's like, for me, I think, when you can do this and you can do it okay, even, let's just say you can just be okay at really commanding in a sales conversation and with your clients and how you interact with them. If you can just be okay at it, you're going to be way ahead of the pack. We've said that already today, but you're going to be able to build the business of your dreams bit by bit, client by client, not the okay clients, the very best clients that are best for you. You're going to be able to build it. Like, imagine building a beautiful Lego. I don't know, I've got young kids, so Lego's on the mind today, but you could have a bag of those little bits and bobs that don't really build anything, or you get the nice big, all the perfect colors that you want to build that big castle or whatever the case may be. It's built brick by brick. And in selling, in this conversation, if you can command this, you're able to build brick by brick the beautiful business that you have inside of your mind. But without those skills, it's a struggle. You're going to end up with the bits and bobs that you can't build anything with.
Yes. What you just said was so perfect. I love it. Yes, I agree.
It really it's a good. I was looking at the past podcasts that we did. You were on episode 261, 5 steps in a sales conversation every bookkeeping business owner should know. So we'll have the link to that in the show notes, but if you just go on to the Successful Bookkeeper and do the search Nikki, Nikki, you'll find it right away. That was an excellent episode, some gold nuggets in there around working on these. And then, of course, I really want to make sure we don't skip over and get that link to that episode that you did on selling clients and working with your team. Those are 2 really powerful things that'll make a big difference in our listeners' business and future life. These are things that it's compounding effect. Little bit of sales training, compounding effect for your entire career.
Yes. And it's one of those things that will serve you over and over and over again. If you're willing, again, to be more flexible, be willing to find what are the things that are most interesting or useful to the client and deliver information in that way. Like, help people achieve their outcome, and you will have clients for life. And the best business to earn is repeat business. That's the easiest business to earn. So repeat business will help you, again, continue to build your business long term, where you're not having to go out and just replace clients over and over and over again. So you want to pay attention to those things.
Absolutely. And when it comes to referrals as well, you've got 5 great clients, they all refer you one great client.
Mm-hmm.
It's better than a couple of great clients referring you a couple of good clients. And then, the not so good clients, they refer not so good clients. It's just the way that it works. So it's just this brick piece, right? It's like building the bricks,
Yeah.
starting with that end in mind and really going there. I mean, having it in your mind is a step, but having the skill to be able to command and win the business of the very best clients, that's golden.
Mm-hmm.
Platinum, in fact.
Yeah.
But let's get back to a little bit around clients and your team, selling clients on working with your team. But then what happens if you've sold them on the clients and then the team structure changes or something happens where someone's left? How do you deal with that? Because I mean, there's some positioning and conversations that have to be handled there. What's your approach?
So my approach and my recommendation is that you want to have a direct conversation with the client, and you don't need to get into the weeds here. This is where you don't need a lot of story. What you do want to do is think about, first and foremost, what's the best way to communicate this information with the client? My recommendation is to communicate it in the way they prefer communication. If there's somebody who's like, just send me stuff in email, I just want an email from you. Or if there's somebody where you're like, this is a conversation we need to have face to face, or we need to have it voice to voice, like that's fine. So set up an appointment with them. And then when you get on the call, just let them know. So there's been some transition with the team, and we are going to transition your account over to Sarah. Now, here's how Sarah is going to really serve you. And again, now you highlight Sarah and all of the great things that she brings to the table. And if they go, well, what happened to Paula? Then you say, Paula has decided to pursue a new opportunity. And, we value you as a client, and we are going to do everything we can to make this transition as smooth as possible. You're welcome to reach out to me if there are any hiccups along the way, but just know that we're totally on top of this, and we're ready for this transition. And Sarah is ready to take the lead on your account.
So great.
So very
simple.
direct. Yes, very direct, without a lot of, well, Paula and, Paula's decided that her and her husband they don't need all the story. It's irrelevant to the conversation.
Totally irrelevant. And really, I love how so many would go to that.
Yeah.
Let's tell you the story. Nobody cares about the story, quite frankly. And stories can be fun and dramatic and all that good stuff, but it's totally off point and leading the conversation in the completely wrong direction. I love that concept of just going right to the point. It's like, we've got a new team member. Here, this person is, and this person is great because of these things, and they're going to take care of you. And the system of your business really should be what's on. I mean, we say that a lot on this podcast around the more you build systems in your business and have documented, detailed ways of doing things, the team member is the person that's just making those systems come to life. But whether it's team member A or team member B, the outcome is the same at the end of the business week or the end of the day, right? It's like
Yes.
McDonald's. You can shuffle one staff across town to the other station, and guess what? The burgers come out beautiful, and the fries taste exactly amazing, and there you go. That's
right.
Power of the systems, right?
Yes.
But I love that conversation of just going very direct. This is what it is, and focusing on the positive, not on the past or the negative.
Yeah. And again, I love a story too. So I don't mean to, tell people like never tell a story, but when you're in transition, when it could be potentially something that's uncomfortable for the client or unknown, if you want them to react badly, tell them a story, tell them all the details, give them all the then it starts to sound like you're making excuses. And so you don't ever want it to sound like an excuse. You want it to sound like information, and then let them have whatever reaction they're going to have. The worst thing you can do is show up for a client and be like, so I've got some bad news. Think about if your kid, those of you who are parents, think about if your kid comes home and they're like, so I have something to tell you. Are you like, what? What did you do? Like your instant go-to reaction is not the like, oh, what's going on? Tell me. It's like, what did you do? And so when you show up with a client and you act like, oh, so I got some bad news, they're going to be like, what? What's happening? And so it puts them on edge. But if you just show up and say, so there's been some transition here in the office, and we are going to be transitioning your account to Sarah. Here is why Sarah is going to take care of you. Here's how she's so amazing. Now you're just delivering information. And then they can have whatever reaction they're going to have. If their reaction is like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, we can't live without Paula, then you can address that at that point. But chances are they're going to be like, okay, thanks for letting me know. Have a good day. And they'll be moving on with their life.
Moving on. That's right. That's right. I love the way that you talk about story, right? Because it's a story. This is just a story that focuses on a different part of the story.
Yes. Good point. Yeah.
And I love that. And I think it's not just in this situation, it's in every situation. What do we want to have someone left with? Whether it's this story about staff, the changeover in staff, what do we want to have them left with? Everything's okay. Everything's going to be good. That's the story we want to tell. And focus the points of the story on everything's going to be good. Everything's going to be okay. Same in the sales conversation. How do we want it to be left with? That we're going to handle them. We're going to take care of them. So if we're getting into the weeds, how's that going to lead? They don't even understand the weeds. How's that going to leave them feeling okay and that everything's going to be good? I love this idea of storytelling because, people do love stories, but the story we're the ones writing the story and telling the story. We're in control of that.
Yeah. So the story needs to be relevant to the person that you're telling the story to. And it needs to go in the direction of the outcome of how do you want to leave them? How do you want them to respond, react? How do you want them to feel at the end of the interaction with you? One of the things I teach this a lot, and I focus on this in my own life and business, but I always imagine that I have a bank account with everybody I come into contact with, and it's a rapport bank account. So the foundation of everything I teach in sales, it's built on rapport. So this rapport bank account, my goal is always to make a deposit when I come into contact with somebody. And the longer I get to know somebody, the longer, our relationship expands, then I hope that account, the balance just continues to grow because I'm making deposit after deposit after deposit. Now, knowing me, I make missteps. Sometimes in an interaction, I might make a withdrawal from that rapport bank account. And I'm just hoping that I have a big enough balance built up that the person will give me some grace. If you don't have a balance built up, it's just like if you go to a new restaurant, you've never been there before, and the food comes out cold, you're probably not going to go back. But if you've been to that same restaurant like 20 times in the last, 2 years, and the food has always been amazing, and the 21st time you go, the food comes out cold, you're probably going to give that restaurant another try. You're not going to take them off your list completely. So that's because they have this rapport account built up with you. There's a balance. So you want to be building balances. And so when I think about a story that I'm going to tell, I want to ask myself, is this going to make a deposit or is this going to make a withdrawal?
Mm-hmm. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. And I love the analogy of eating at a place. It's like we're always got to be thinking about that, their experience. And just listening to you talk about that, it comes back to great clients again, because if we have any clients that are high maintenance, they're not, they don't want to play by the rules that you've got in your business, they're taking away from your ability to put into the rapport bank with these other clients.
Yeah.
And so it just comes back to that, the business, a simpler business is one that has really great clients that you love working with, that pay you well. And if you build it that way, you can spend the time you need to make sure that they stay with you, that they love the service, that you do a great job for them, all of those good things. And really selling and being able to have these skills, telling these stories, and not only to your clients, but also to your staff and your team is going to get you there. It's another thing that you talk about, which is how to, have your top staff or the people that are working with you sell them on staying on the team and with you? How is that? How do you address that yourself?
Well, how I address it with my team is I want to know, what are they motivated by? And so people's motivations, again, it's not about me. It's not about what I'm motivated by. It's what are they motivated by? I have team members that love to receive gifts. I'm going to send gifts to my team members from time to time. I have team members that love recognition, public recognition. So I'm going to be sure that if there's an opportunity for me to recognize them publicly, that I do. So it's always like, what is their motivation? I have another team member who likes time with me, and I have to try to remember to dedicate time with that team member because that's important to her. Whereas I have another team member who could care less about having time with me. It's more about like just getting stuff done, and she likes a gift from time to time, right? So it's focusing on what are their motivators, and then offering some type of touch point that lets them be seen and known and recognized in the business. And I think you will build a loyal team by doing that. And then there's also this piece about developing your own leadership skills. I will say, I've spent the last year and a half in a program that is completely dedicated to me developing my own leadership skills, because when I look at how incredible my team is, I want to keep them. I want them to stay motivated in my business. And I also know that I need to be a better leader in order for them to be all working towards the same mission. So I invest in my own personal development so that I can be a better leader for my team.
I love that. So amazing. And the gold in this episode coming from you is just incredible. I'd love for you to tell our listener how they can get more gold from you. You have your Sales Maven podcast. You help people in sales. You've got all sorts of resources around sales, training and development. Tell us a little bit about that and how others can learn more and connect with you.
Oh, thank you for that. So one, you had mentioned the podcast episode. If you go and search the Sales Maven podcast and search how to sell your business team, that's the episode that's been referenced a few times. And so that'll be an easy way for us to kind of get connected in that way. And then I'd love to offer your audience a free gift. This will be just my gift for listening to us today and listening to me in particular. I have an ebook. It's called Closing the Sale. I think I gave it on the last podcast that I did with you as well. But it's about boosting your confidence in those sales conversations. It's called Closing the Sale. You can get it by going to yoursalesmaven.com/bookkeeper. So this is specific for Michael's audience. And then we'll be connected. And I would love to support you in some way. I work with clients kind of in three main ways. I have private coaching clients that I work with one-on-one. I have a group coaching program where people in the group coaching get access to, sales trainings from me. They get live calls with me throughout the month. They get a private group where they can ask questions every day if they'd like. And then I teach master classes, usually one master class a quarter that's specific to a certain sales technique or topic. So those are the ways I work with clients.
That's awesome. Well, we will have those links, of course, in our show notes. And I really do encourage you to get back, listen to the past episode on our podcast as well. I will put a link to how to sell your business team. I've gone and searched and found that. We'll put that in the show notes as well. And, Nikki, just like last time, it was just such a pleasure to have you on the show. And on behalf of our listener, I want to thank you for your generosity in coming and sharing all of this with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really grateful to have had this conversation with you.
The pleasure is all of ours. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.